Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Nathan Mihelich, Executive Director of the Illinois Recycling Foundation, and I want to thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedules to be here. Before we dive in, a quick note, we're recording today's webinar, and we know many of you will be watching this recording rather than attending live, and that's perfectly fine. This recording will be available shortly after today's session, and we're designing this walkthrough to be just as valuable whether you're watching live or on your own time. For those of you joining us live this morning, please use the chat feature or the raise your hand button in Zoom if you have any questions. We'll take any and all questions. Nothing is off limits. And if something is confusing to you, definitely please speak up because it's probably confusing to others too. Today's webinar is particularly important because we're going to walk through the Illinois Statewide Recycling Needs Assessment Survey step by step. This assessment is mandated by Public Act 103-383 and represents a once-in-a-generation opportunity to create a comprehensive picture of recycling across Illinois. The data you provide through the survey will directly inform where state funding, federal grants, technical assistance, and policy recommendations go for the next decade. If your community isn't represented in the data, your needs might not be on the table when those critical decisions get made. I'm excited to introduce our presenters from UNOMA Research and Consulting today. With us, we have Caitlin Reese and Wynn Cowman, who are leading this statewide assessment. UNOMA was awarded the contract by the state to conduct this comprehensive needs assessment, and they've been working closely with us at the Illinois Recycling Foundation to ensure we capture the full picture of recycling infrastructure, access, and needs across Illinois. Caitlin and Wynn bring deep expertise in materials management, recycling systems analysis, and data collection. They've designed this survey to be as straightforward as possible while still capturing the critical information we need to understand the state of recycling in Illinois. So over the next 30 or 40 minutes, we're going to do a complete walkthrough of the survey. Caitlin and Wynn will show you exactly what questions you'll encounter, what information you'll need to have handy, and how to handle situations where you might not have exact numbers, because we know not every community tracks data the same way, and that's okay. Throughout this presentation, if you're watching live, again, please don't hesitate to use the chat or raise your hand with questions. We'll pause often to address them. And if you're watching the recording and you have questions afterwards, please directly reach out at Illinois Needs Assessment at unomia-inc.com or email us at info@illinoisrecycles.org. And just a reminder, the survey deadline is approaching. It is October 28th, and we have one more webinar scheduled for October 27th at 1:30 p.m. for anyone who can't complete the survey today or has additional questions. So without further ado, I'm going to hand things over to Caitlin, who will walk us through the survey structure, what information we're collecting, and how you can complete this survey efficiently. Caitlin, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Nathan. Okay, I'm going to just advance the next slide. So that's just changing for you all as well. Okay, great. Thank you, Wynn. So today, as Nathan has said, we'll just give a brief overview of the project that is why we are speaking to you all today about collecting data, the Illinois Statewide Recycling Needs Assessment, and then we'll explain a little bit about why this data collection is so important, which Nathan has also shared some of already. And then, as we said, we'll go into the details of the survey that we have developed for local government specifically, walking through the different types of data needs and the different types of questions that you'll encounter in the survey. And then we are hoping to save a good chunk of time at the end for your questions and answers. So to give a little bit of a background on the project, so this project is being informed by two key sets of goals or requirements. So as Nathan mentioned, there is the Statewide Recycling Needs Assessment Act, and this is mandating the needs assessment that's focused specifically on packaging and paper products. And this is maybe if you've heard about this project, maybe the part of the project you've heard more about. In addition, This project is being funded by a grant from the federal EPA called a Swiffer grant. And based on the requirements of that grant, the scope of materials that we're looking at has been expanded outside of just packaging and paper products. So if you've heard about the needs assessment and you thought it was just focused on packaging and paper products, and you're wondering why we might be asking you about other types of materials, that's why. To give a high-level overview of the project and the timeline that we're looking at, we really are in this task 2 on the left, the research and data gathering stage. In this stage, we are conducting both primary and secondary research. So through the primary research, we have a handful of different surveys that are going out. One is the survey to local governments, which we'll be, of course, focusing on today. And in addition, we're also surveying waste haulers and facilities around the state. And then in addition to these surveys, we're also conducting secondary research where we'll be filling in some gaps that we may have with online research as well as FOIA request information through the state. And why this first task is so important is the data that we collect and gather in this stage really is the foundation for the rest of the project. So all of the colorful arrows to the right. So we next will be conducting an analysis and modeling task where we'll be taking all of the information that we gather in task 2 and establishing an evaluation of what's currently happening in Illinois with recycling. And then from that kind of current state baseline assessment, we will be looking to what's possible in the future in Illinois. So we'll be looking to the defined recovery rates of 35%, 50%, and 65%, and understanding what needs to happen in the state to reach those recovery rates and an assessment of how much that might cost. In addition to that more quantitative process, we'll also be filling in some context for what these numbers really mean with these other tasks on the right. So for each of the surveyed materials, we'll be doing an assessment of the processing capacity and infrastructure in the state, as well as for packaging and paper products. We'll be looking at the use of recycled content and the current reusability, recyclability, or compostability of the packaging. And then for all materials, we'll also be looking at the market conditions, limitations, and opportunities in the state and neighboring states. So we understand that collection and processing of materials is so important, but if the end markets for those materials aren't there, that's also not the outcome, not the ideal outcome. Then, in addition, we'll be looking at in tasks 8 and 9, an assessment of education that goes out for recycling and the languages that this education is already distributed in, as well as where certain communities might be speaking languages other than English primarily at home and might benefit from multilingual outreach for recycling. And through this, we'll be doing, we've started with looking at census data and environmental justice data in the state, and then we'll be conducting a telephone survey to communities around the state, as well as conducting community listening sessions. And these listening sessions will be done virtually. In task 9, we'll be looking at similar communities around the state, but trying to understand where there may be overlaps in the environmental justice communities around the state that have already been established and differences in access to recycling, as well as the location of recycling facilities. All of this research and data collection and analysis will be compiled in a final report, the first draft of which is scheduled for June of next year. So just to give another outline of some of the more quantitative findings that we'll be sharing, as this is oftentimes the information that is then used to make future decisions about funding or policy, as Nathan mentioned, going forward. So the current state that we'll be developing will reflect estimates of the materials generated in the state by stream in different counties and regions in the state. And then there will also be a summary of how each of these materials are currently being handled at end of life and the GHG emissions, that greenhouse gas emissions that may be associated with those end of life management processes. Then when we look to the future state, we'll be looking to those recovery rates that I mentioned. So how can we get the recovery rates for different materials up to 35%, 50%, and 65% by 2035 in Illinois? And what would it take to make those recovery rates possible, and the corresponding costs and potential GHG reductions getting to those recovery rates. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the local government data collection in particular and why this piece is so important. So the goal of the survey is really to support this comprehensive assessment of what is currently going on in the state. And moving on to the next slide, it's really important that we have this data because it will be so foundational to our understanding of what's currently happening in the state. And then from there, that's where we will understand what is possible for the future in Illinois. And as Nathan mentioned, the outcomes of this study will be used to inform future decision making on future policies and future investments in improving the statewide recycling system. I just want to pause before we even get into any of the details of the survey itself and the types of data that we're looking for, and really drive home the point that any information is better than no information. I had the opportunity to attend the Illinois Circularity Conference last week, and it was so amazing to speak to people in person about the study and hear about things going on in Illinois. And one of the things that we heard is that people may think that this survey is not relevant to them if they don't currently have different types of waste collection services in their jurisdiction. But even that, even knowing that in your jurisdiction these services are not provided, is really valuable information when we look to understanding the current state and the future state. So now we're going to walk through the local government survey that we've developed and the different types of information and questions that you will see in the survey. So there are 5 key areas of information that we're looking for, and I'm going to walk through each of them. But just to give an overview, there's the general information about your jurisdiction, and then information on curbside program details, drop-off sites and special materials, and then cost information, and lastly, education, outreach, and then reuse program information as well. So the survey has been distributed via SurveyMonkey. So there is a SurveyMonkey link for the survey, and we've sent this out to local governments around the state. If you have not received a link to the survey via email, please reach out to us at ilneedsassessment@eunomia-inc.com, and we will be sure that you receive a link to the survey. But hopefully everyone listening to this has received a link. So starting with the first category of information, which is the easiest and most straightforward, this is really just information on your jurisdiction. So your jurisdiction name, as well as contact info for any follow-up. We may follow up if we have questions or clarifications on information you provide in the survey, but this also helps us to validate that who we're hearing from in the survey is who we should be hearing from in each jurisdiction. And then we ask for general information on the number of single versus multifamily households in your jurisdiction, as well as the haulers that are currently operating in your area and any contracts that are in place to provide hauling services to residents. So then in the next section, we ask for information on curbside program details. And so in this section, we'll go through questions and it will be similar questions that go through recycling, trash, and then food or yard waste. So under the curbside recycling questions, we will ask about frequency of curbside recycling collection in your area, and then looking at single family and multifamily households. We're seeking to understand the number of households that have access to residential curbside recycling, as well as how that service is provided to those residents. And so there will be some more detailed questions depending on how services are provided. For example, um, if it's through subscription, then we may ask if you have information on estimating the percentage of residents that subscribe and are participating in the program. And then we'll also ask for information on annual tonnage collected if you have that information. Um, in addition to information on the households, we'll ask about the materials that are accepted in the curbside recycling programs. And in this question, we will have a list of different types of materials, and you can check off which ones are accepted in your jurisdiction's program. We also ask for some more information on how these materials are collected. For example, if it's single stream or dual stream, or if certain materials need to be separated out. And then lastly, we ask about the types of containers that are used to collect the materials, whether it's a bin or bags, and as I said, the tonnage of recycling collected. We then go through similar questions for curbside trash. So I'm not going to walk through each of these bullets again, but one additional question here is we ask for if there's any understanding of seasonal variation in waste generation for trash. And then lastly, we ask for similar information on yard and food waste collection as well for curbside programs. The recycling question section is the most detailed. So again, I'm not going to walk through each of these for yard and food waste as well. Then we move on to the drop-off sites and special materials section. So seeking similar information, but of course relevant to drop-off sites rather than curbside. So we ask about access to drop-off sites, the number of drop-off sites in your jurisdiction and who has access to them. For example, whether they are open to just residents in the jurisdiction or if residents from neighboring jurisdictions are able to use the drop-off sites. And then again, we have a question going through the materials that are accepted at these sites and the tonnages that are estimated to be collected through them. And then similarly, we have a question on any seasonal variation in what's collected at these drop-off sites and if there are also hard to recycle materials that are accepted. Moving into the fees, costs, and rates section of questions, this is where we'll get into some more details on how residents are paying for their waste collection services. And so we do ask for, we understand that rates can be bundled or separated out, and especially with yard and food waste, there is variation around the state in how residents might be paying for those services. So we have broken it out in the questions so that it should be easy for respondents to indicate if they have information on either maybe it's all bundled and it's trash recycling and yard or food waste that's all bundled into one rate, or it might be separated. And so we have a question that allows you to indicate the type of information you have and report on the rates accordingly. And I think this is a section where we get the most questions around why we're asking for this information from local governments in particular. And so, as I mentioned earlier, speaking to the different data collection processes that we're going through, I want to reiterate that we are surveying and speaking to haulers and facilities as well. And so we will be asking haulers around the state for information on the rates and their rates and costs as well. But this information can be quite sensitive for haulers to provide. And so we try and gather this information from various stakeholders so that we can fill as many gaps as possible and paint the most accurate picture of what's happening in Illinois. And so we will use household rates from local governments to fill in some of those gaps that we may have. Additionally, there will be a question in this section asking if, or based on a question in an earlier section, asking if your jurisdiction actually runs and operates services rather than just contracting. If you do operate and run services in your jurisdiction, there will be more detailed questions for you on the costs of running the program. Then lastly, we move into the education, outreach, and reuse program section. So in this section, we'll ask about the types of recycling, education, and outreach that are provided in your jurisdiction and the number of staff that are employed to focus on recycling programming. And again, the languages that are used um, to provide that outreach. And so this piece is really important because when we look to improving the statewide recycling system, we understand that we certainly improving access to collection services and expanding infrastructure in the state can be really important levers for improving the recycling system. And additionally, education can be another really important lever to pull on to make sure that residents understand what they're doing and are properly disposing of different materials to help the system run as smoothly as possible and reach those very high recovery rates that we would like to see in Illinois. And so this type of information will help us understand what's currently happening with education and the costs that might be necessary to expand or improve education and outreach in the state. And then lastly, we ask about any reuse programs that are going on in your jurisdiction, as that will be part of the assessment as well. So then just quickly to go over the different types of questions that you'll see in the survey. There will be some questions that are multiple choice where you'll be able to select from a list of options. And we've tried to stick to this option as much as possible in the survey to make it easier for you all to quickly respond. And then there are some questions that we understand are just too nuanced or complicated to be a multiple choice question. So there will be some that are open-ended. And then we also have some questions where we're seeking numerical information. And so this is a type of question that sometimes trips people up, where if you put in a answer that is not a number or includes text rather than just a number. So for example, when we ask about tonnages of recycling, if that's a numerical question and you put in tons after the number, then you'll receive an error message telling you that you can't submit it that way. So if we are asking for a quantitative or numerical answer, please be sure to include it as just a number, and then that will help you move right along to the next questions in the survey. I also wanted to say here that many of the questions are optional. There are very few questions in the survey that you will see an asterisk next to, and those are required questions. And so going back to what I said earlier, truly any information is better than no information. And so we ask that you fill in as much as you are aware of and know about and are able to respond to, but we have kept the required questions fairly limited to allow you to skip over questions that you do not have information on. So I walked through a lot of different types of data that we are looking for, and I've done my best to summarize here at a high level the information that's really crucial because, as I said, many of the questions are optional, and we understand that we are asking you all to take a significant amount of time to fill out this survey and want to do what we can to also direct you to some of the most important information that we're looking for. It's very challenging to say what the most important information is because none of the questions that are in the survey are useless. Any information that you give us, we will use. So please don't skip over questions that you have information on just because you want to keep going with the survey. We really do ask that you fill out as much as you can, and we want to reassure you that the information you provide us, we will use. That being said, some of the most important information that we're looking for is, of course, the jurisdiction name. I believe that's a required question, so I don't think you can skip that one. And then when we go through the curbside versus drop-off services, the two key things we're really looking for under these different types of programs is the availability of that service, so who has access, and the amount of the tonnage that is going through these curbside and drop-off programs. And then any information that you have on per household fees, as I've said, is also very useful for us. So that's a quick summary of the data needs. And I think, yep, that's last slide. So then just to reiterate, if you have any questions at all, please reach out to ilneedsassessment@eunomia-inc.com. We will do our best to get back to you as quickly as possible with any questions to help you move along with the survey. And also, as I said earlier, if you have not yet received a link to the survey, which hopefully everyone listening today has, but if you have not, please reach out and we will be sure to get that link to you. And then help spread the word. We are doing everything we can to make sure that local governments around the state are aware of the survey and have the information that they need to complete the survey. But you all have your networks in the state as well. So anything you can do to help us spread the word about the survey and make sure that that everyone is filling it out would be a huge help to us and will help us paint the most accurate picture of what's happening in Illinois possible to allow for the best future decisions to be made for you all to improve the statewide recycling system in Illinois. So the survey deadline is October 28th, which is coming up, and we are so excited to dig into all the data that we receive from you all very shortly. I think now we'll move into some questions and answers. And I also want to pause and make sure if you have anything to add, please jump in if I missed anything.
No, I don't think so. I mean, you said this, but I'll just reiterate that that we realize, I mean, it's kind of hard we realize that it's a patchwork across the state of Illinois. That is often what we see. And so, just do your best to, if you even have an estimate in some places that you can put, we realize that the data is not going to be perfect. So any information is better than no information. I know Caitlin said that numerous times, but I just want to reiterate that any data is better than no data. So even if you're having to estimate, that's okay. So, all right. I think we can move on to the questions.
Oh, I just saw in the chat that there's one question. Sorry, I could not see the chat for a minute there. Maybe I'll stop sharing my screen because we don't need to just look at this. We can look at each other. Yes, okay, so thank you for this question. How we're reaching out to those who need to know about the survey. We are doing our best to do this through multiple outlets. So we first compiled just a list of for each municipality in the state, an email associated with that municipality. So we started at the municipality level and sent out an email to all of those contacts, and then we have received some responses saying I'm not the best person to complete the survey and have pivoted to a different contact within that municipality. And in addition to municipalities and email outreach, we have reached out to counties via email as well, taking a similar approach there. And then we're also working with IRF on distributing some emails to similar contacts, but from a more familiar organization than Eunomia. We found in other states that we've worked in that partnering with local organizations that people are more familiar with often helps boost response rate for the survey. And so we are very grateful to Nathan and IRF for their partnership here. And then we are also doing these webinars to help boost engagement and answer questions and just raise awareness about the survey. When have I missed anything?
No, I would just add to that that if you think, Angie, if you think that there is something that we're missing, by all means speak up and let us know. We'd be happy to use other outlets if anyone has suggestions.
And the foundation has reached out to the Illinois Municipal League and asked them for their assistance, as well as the Association for Illinois Illinois City and County Administrators. We believe they have sent out an email about the survey too as well. So we're trying to leave no stone unturned when it comes to trying to reach our contacts at the county, city, and township level.
Angie, it looked like you went off mute. I don't know if you had a suggestion.
Ilksma, Pete with Ilksma, I actually saw that he was registered for this webinar. I don't know if he was able to join or not, but certainly that's an avenue that we can explore to just to make sure that they have sent it to each one of their members. I believe that I hope that something has gone out on behalf of Ilksma, but I will definitely follow up and make sure that those members are represented. I know we did invite Pete, and we invited Christina from Swana as well to be here. They couldn't be here this morning. I do believe that we're hoping to have some more of our statewide recycling and waste professionals on the next webinar, before that October 28th deadline.
And we are engaging directly with the waste authorities to figure out how best to capture all of their data, because it may not be through the survey, but it will be same types of information as the survey, potentially with a bit more manual processing for us, since they manage data for multiple jurisdictions.
Has anyone opened up the survey and taken a look at it, had any issues with any of the questions, or needed any help this morning? While we do have Caitlin and Wynn here as our experts on any of the questions, or is there something about your data collection that doesn't make sense to the survey? We're happy to answer those questions as well. Maybe not even for yourself, but if you're confused or need some extra help while we are here this morning.
So it looks like Angie asked to send the survey. Oh, okay, I see there's a thumbs up. We'll send it. The survey link.
this is definitely yeoman's work here when it comes to trying to reach the right people to take this survey. And if, certainly if there's anything that the foundation can do, Caitlin or Wynn at Eunomia, we're all here to help. We're all very accessible. The survey hopefully won't take you that much time. But, like we said throughout this webinar this morning, the results, the data from the survey are going to have implications for years and years to come across Illinois. And we want to make sure that, those resources and those allocations are put in the right area. So definitely taking this survey is vital. And we're really trying to reach out. If you do have any counterparts in neighboring cities or counties, please send them the link to the survey. Send them the link to next Monday's webinar. We're at the point where we're sending out emails, we're making calls, but we're not at the, we're not reaching, I don't believe, the large number of, recycling professionals that we need, to actually take this survey. So if you could help us as well, that would be much beneficial, and it would benefit the entire state of Illinois. Caitlin, did you see that message in the chat there?
From Sarah, as a county agency, would full county data be sufficient, or are you more interested in individual cities? If as a county you have information on the whole county, we definitely are interested in that information. And I think maybe I can ask you a clarifying question. Do you have information for the whole county inclusive of the cities within the county? Or when you say the whole county, do you have information more so on within your county outside of the major cities? Okay. Well, either is great. We'll take all of the information we can get. And just in terms of when you go through the survey, the number of households that you put in at the very beginning of the survey, that will be what we gauge that information is based on. So if it's information that is based on your entire county, then the households for that whole county would be the numbers that you would put in. Or if you're responding only on behalf of certain parts of the county, then we would ask that you try to put in the households relevant to the areas in your county that you're providing information on. Does that make sense? Great.
Yes, and don't hesitate to reach out with that email address if as you go in and start to answer the questions and aren't sure how to answer. I think the most comprehensive data, if you have comprehensive data and you can't figure out, if you're a county and you have comprehensive data and can't figure out how to answer the questions, by all means reach out via the email, and we should be able to help you. So we don't want to miss out on data because of how, if things are written in such a way that you feel like you have more data and you can't fit it in, please reach out.
All right, well, I don't see any other questions, and Wynn and Caitlin did a great job, I think, explaining everything for today. This is that's for the entirety of Illinois. Please help us, not only take the survey, share it, share the link with your counterparts. Definitely help us, get the word out. We are on a very short deadline to meet the goals that the state has set forth. So the clock is ticking. We do hope that you'll look at the survey, take it, ask the questions that are needed, and help us promote the survey if at all possible. So thank you so much for joining us this morning. The email for questions is in the chat. We will provide that as well. Definitely reach out if you do have any questions while taking the survey, either to Eunomia or us at the foundation. We'll likely route you back to Eunomia. They're the experts. And then after the conclusion of the survey, they'll move to the next phase. So please reach out if you do have any additional questions via email. We'll be happy to help. Thank you for attending, and best of luck with the survey.